Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be sharing 3 easy comfort recipes that you can share with your family this holiday season. Let's get started with my homemade chili.
Okay, so for this recipe, you'll be needing a can of red kidney beans, a can of pinto beans, and a can of black beans. These are just the ones that are going to be expiring next, so they're all different brands, and I really don't care if they're all the same brand or not. And then you'll need 2 cans of sweet whole kernel corn, and then a can of the red gold or any brand of the petite diced tomatoes with green chilies. You'll need half a carton or a whole carton, your preference, of chicken broth. For your toppings, you'll use, for us personally, I like a little bit of sour cream, some Mexican shredded cheese or cheddar cheese, whichever you prefer, and a jalapeno. And then to start off, you'll need a half of an onion, of a sweet yellow onion, and a few cloves of garlic. And for meat of choice, I am going to be using this lean ground beef. It was a little bit on sale, so I decided to use this. We do like to get lean beef just because that way we can monitor our fat content that we add in there. And then, of course, our chili seasoning. I am going to be trying this out. I've never tried these before. But based on the smell, once I open it, I'll be able to tell if I'm going to use 1 or 2 packages, and then go from there. Typically, I'll make my own, but these looked pretty good and they were on sale, so I'm going to try that out. So this is typically everything you'll need, and then of course you'll need some water. I will leave the recipe down below in the description if you want to check that out. And I totally forgot, I like to eat it with some corn tortillas, some white corn tortillas. That's my preference, but you can choose to have it with tortilla chips or whichever you prefer.
Hey y'all, thanks so much for tuning in to today's video. My name is Madeline, for those of you that don't know me. I will be sharing with y'all my recipes that I have created over the years that are family favorites and that we love to enjoy in the holiday season or even in the cooler seasons. So first thing I'm doing is I'm chopping up my yellow onion. I need about 1 cup of finely chopped onion, and then I just set that aside. So here I'm just removing the skins from the garlic cloves, and I'm going to go ahead and finely press or finely mince the garlic, and I need about 1.5 tablespoons of this garlic. Either way it kind of comes out the same, but I feel like pressed garlic really gives it an extra added garlic flavor without adding a lot of garlic powder. So here I am just adding a tablespoon of the vegetable oil into my cast iron Dutch oven, and then once that heats up, I'm adding my onion into the pan to give that a nice saute, and then I'm adding in my 1.5 pounds of ground beef, of lean ground beef. And then while that sautés, I'm going to go ahead and add in my seasoning. So here I'm adding a teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm adding my 1.5 tablespoons of pressed or minced garlic, and then I'm adding in the package of the mild chili powder from McCormick, the low sodium. And since I like an extra added flavor of chili powder, I have my New Mexico mild chili powder, and I'm just adding in about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons worth of that. I felt like the McCormick seasoning needed an extra added boost of the chili powder to really make the meat and the flavors sing. Now I'm adding in my 1/2 carton of the chicken broth, and I'm gonna let that simmer a little bit before adding in my rinsed and drained beans and corn. So here I'm adding in my 2 cups of water, and then I will go ahead and add in my can of petite diced tomatoes with green chilies and let that simmer for about 20 minutes covered. After 20 minutes, I check on my chili and then I just give it a quick stir before letting it simmer for an additional 10 to 15 minutes just to make sure we reduce the liquid as much as possible, but still maintaining the flavor. And now I'm just serving it up, and then I'm gonna add my toppings. I just love this chili so much. It is so delicious and so comforting. I will say, if you are not a red meat person, you can definitely do this recipe with ground turkey. I have done that before and it turns out just as good. And so here I'm just warming up some corn tortillas to have with my meal, just using it on the comal. And yes, my fingers are desensitized to heat now. So now I'm just adding in my toppings. I like a little bit of cheese. I like some jalapenos. I like sour cream and a little bit of fresh onion for my dish. However, my husband, he just likes his with just cheese and a little bit of jalapenos. So it really is your own preference what you like to add, but this is our way of doing it. Moving on to my Mexican ground beef tacos, what I am going to be doing is I will be finely chopping about a half cup of sweet yellow onion and mincing about 1 tablespoon of garlic, of fresh garlic, and then setting that aside to get sauteed. You'll also need about 1 pound of ground beef. We are using, again, lean ground beef for this recipe, but you can definitely use whichever protein that you desire. Next, I'll be adding in 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil to my pan on medium heat, and I'll go ahead and saute the onions for about 1 to 2 minutes or until they're a little bit translucent. And then adding in my minced garlic, I'll go ahead and saute that for an additional minute just to get the garlic softened but not to burn. Next, I'm adding in my pound of ground beef, and I'm going to go ahead and give that a mix before adding in our seasonings. Now I'm adding in my teaspoon of kosher salt and 2 teaspoons of freshly ground black pepper. I am adding this at this time so that way the salt can really draw out all that fat from the meat, which we will be draining in a little bit. What I do to drain the fat content from my meat is I move the meat to one side, tilt my pan, and then with a paper towel, I go ahead and place that in the pan and let all of that fat absorb into that paper towel. And once it's absorbed, I remove the paper towel and place it into a bowl just to let it cool off before disposing of it. And now I will be adding in the rest of my seasonings. I'll be adding in 1.5 teaspoons of ground oregano, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin or comino, and about 1 to 2 tablespoons of mild New Mexico chili powder. This mild New Mexico chili powder really is such a great addition to your seasoning cabinet. It makes your red meat, your ground beef, really taste super delicious, very earthy, very flavorful. I highly recommend, if you want to try out this chili powder, you just try a little bit at a time. It is so worth it, and it really makes it taste the most authentic to Mexico's ground beef tacos. And now I'm just kind of chopping up my toppings. Toppings are all preference based. I feel tacos are just a universal meal that you can just add basically whatever toppings you prefer. I like a little bit of tomato, lettuce, sour cream, avocado, basically everything. My husband, he doesn't like tomatoes, he doesn't like avocado, and he doesn't like onions or anything like that. So he just does cheese on his tacos and lettuce. So anyone, it's totally up to you what you like to do. And here I'm just heating up my flour tortillas and just getting them prepared for all the tacos, the delicious tacos we'll be eating. And now it's time to assemble our tacos. I love tacos so much. Every time I came to edit this video, I started salivating every single time I saw the tacos and me eating the tacos, and I feel like I need to go make some more. So let me know if you try out this recipe. I love this so much, and it is such a quick and easy meal to make. It truly is so easy. I make this in less than 30 minutes. The last recipe I'll be sharing with y'all is my homemade lasagna. For this recipe, you'll be needing 1 package of lasagna noodles, 1 jar of spaghetti sauce, 1/4 of a sweet onion finely chopped, 6 cloves of garlic, grated Parmesan cheese, a mozzarella ball, shredded mozzarella, whole milk ricotta, and a pound of ground beef lean. All of the measurements will be down below in the description for this recipe. So first, I am just going to prep all my cheese. I am going to be slicing the mozzarella ball into thin slices. That will be for the top layer of our lasagna. Next, I will be cutting my brick of mozzarella in half. I will only be using half of this brick for this recipe. However, you can add more or less cheese depending on what your preference is like. I feel like the cheese amount that I use is pretty cheesy, but you know, it's all whatever you like in your home. And I'm just finely shredding this cheese and setting it aside for the next step. Next, I'm just quartering my half of my sweet yellow onion, and I will be finely chopping that into small pieces. I am making sure that I keep these pieces small because for lasagna, you do want it to have a nice smooth texture. So if you can, just try and get them as fine as possible. And then I'll also be getting my garlic ready by mincing it. You'll need about 1 tablespoon of that minced garlic. So that'll be about anywhere from 5 to 7 cloves. Next, I'm adding in about a tablespoon of kosher salt to my boiling water just to get that prepared for the noodles. Once that salt is dissolved, I go ahead and add in my lasagna noodles one at a time and let them boil for about 5 to 6 minutes or until they're al dente, meaning that they're still a bit chewy, but they're definitely not cooked all the way because the sauce will be what will cook it the rest of the way. Here I am adding about a tablespoon of olive oil and a tablespoon of unsalted butter, and to that I will be sauteing my onion on about medium heat and just making sure that the onion gets a little bit translucent before adding in my garlic. Next, I'll be adding in my pound of lean ground beef. You can use whichever beef that you prefer. I have used ground chuck for this, but this is just what I had on hand. And after sauteing that for a little bit, I'll be adding in my teaspoon of kosher salt and 2 teaspoons of freshly ground black pepper. After that's been cooking or almost fully cooked, I'm going to do the same method as I did for the tacos and drain the grease from the meat by tilting my pan, getting a paper towel, and allowing that paper towel to absorb all of that extra fat content we don't want in this dish. Next, I am just adding in my pasta sauce to the dish. I had a little bit left over from a previous dish with that first jar, so I just went ahead and used that up before adding in the rest of my pasta sauce, but you will just be needing the 1 jar of pasta sauce for this dish. Next, preparing my pan with a little bit of Pam. I just spray that down in a 9x13 pan and put a nice thin layer of my meat sauce on the bottom, just so that way the noodles for sure will not adhere to the bottom of the pan. So I do a layer of 4 noodles on the bottom, and then I put my pasta sauce first, topping it off with ricotta cheese, mixing the pasta sauce and the cheese together to make sure the layer of noodles are fully covered. Then I add in my mozzarella cheese on top and then my Parmesan cheese, and then I go ahead and repeat that 4 more times. For the final layer, I just add in the last tiny bit of pasta sauce that I have, and I just spread that out nice and thin on top of the last 4 noodles. And then I add my ricotta cheese and spread that out nice and thin as well. We want that to be fully covering all of the noodles because we don't want the noodles to get all crispy in the oven. And then I'm just finishing it with the last little bit of my shredded mozzarella cheese, and then my fresh mozz will go right on top. The fresh mozzarella on top is just such a perfect way to top this lasagna. It gives such a nice cheesy pull. It's that picture perfect-esque topping that you really want to show off. So I highly recommend that. And then I just top it off with a little bit of that grated parm and cover it up. We will be baking this in the oven at 375 for 40 minutes covered. And then you will uncover it and place it back in the oven for an additional 15 minutes just to make sure that cheese on top is nice and bubbly. And then just let it tent for about 10 minutes. Tenting is the process of just loosely putting the foil back over the pan, and then it should be ready to serve. This dish is comforting, it's warm, and it's perfect to have at the center of your next family gathering. I have such a special place in my heart for this recipe. My grandfather and I are really close, and this was the first meal that I cooked for him that he thoroughly enjoyed and actually got seconds of. I wouldn't say he's a picky eater, but he'll definitely let you know if something's lacking flavor. So I really do hope that you enjoy this, and let me know if you get to try this recipe.
It's true, the difference is the same. The colors always change, but the song is the same now. In June, lifting us high.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. If you tried out any of these recipes, definitely let me know. I would love to hear from y'all. I hope you all have a safe Halloween, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye y'all.